Question 1, let's multiply these two guys together here. First thing we want to do is multiply our big numbers, or those coefficients. 2 times 5, that's going to give us 10. And we said when we multiply with exponents, we really add them. So when we have x to the second times x to the third, you just simply add 2 plus 3, that'd give you x to the fifth. And then I would just simply bring down y to the third because there's nothing else to multiply y to the third by, so it has to be in the problem. So there's our answer to question 1. Question 2, since we're multiplying all the way across, we're going to multiply all of the big numbers at once. And this is probably where your calculator is going to be the most handy for you if you're still struggling with positive and negative numbers. So here we go. Let's start with our big numbers. 2 times negative 2, that's negative 4. But if I take negative 4 and I multiply it times 3, that's going to give me negative 12. Now we're ready to multiply our letters together, our variables. C to the first times C to the first, that's C to the second. So I have C to the second. But I have to multiply this guy here again with this other C to the second. And so when I do that, the rule says to add them together. So that would be C to the fourth. Or you could simply go through and do what's 1 plus 1 plus 2. That would be C to the fourth. And then our last guy here is let's multiply our variable d to the third times d to the first. Simply add those up. 3 plus 1 would be d to the fourth. And if for some reason you're struggling when you're doing these problems, remember we talked about you can use STO on that TI calculator. Pick a random number for C, pick a random number for D, go through and type your entire problem in just like you see it with the parentheses and hit enter. It's going to give you some kind of number, a random number so to speak, and then this will also give you a number, and when these two numbers match, then we know that this answer is 100% correct. Question 3. Question 3, you can see that it's split up into two parts. Part 1 is over here on the left. That's what we're going to start with first. Multiply our big numbers, our coefficients. 2 times 3 is 6. X squared times x to the 6th is x to the 8th, because we're just adding the exponents. Now let's go over to the right side here, our second part. And I'm actually going to think of this as, well, let's just do this here. 4 times 2, that's going to give me 8. I'm going to go ahead and put down the subtract sign here. And then we have x to the fourth times x to the fourth. Add those little numbers together, the exponents. Oops, I didn't do that. That'd be x to the 8th. We talked about the first semester during the first 6 weeks that if you have like terms, x to the 8ths can be put together with x to the 8ths. Notice we are no longer multiplying. We are not applying a law of exponents. We are simply combining like terms. Actually, you could pretend like if you held out your hand and pretend like in your left hand you were holding 6 of these new products called x to the 8ths. And if I were to take 8 of those away, I would actually be in the negative. And so your answer would be negative 2x to the 8ths. When you combine like terms, you are not applying a law of exponents. The law of exponents is when we are multiplying or dividing. And if you look right here, we're subtracting. That's combining like terms. Number 4. Number 4 has a multi-distribution that we're going to end up doing here. Let's put in our big number, our coefficient, and let's multiply here. Negative 2 times 1. That gives me negative 2. Multiply the x to the first power times x to the second power. That's x to the third power. But since I do not have anything to multiply the y with in this first term, I still have to include that in with our first distribution step. Now, let's distribute again. Let's do negative 2 times negative 3. That's positive 6. X to the first on the left times x to the first here in the middle. Remember, you add the exponents when you're multiplying. And then we have y to the first times y to the first would be y to the second. And we have one more distribution that's going to take place here. Include my coefficient in front of y squared, so we do negative 2 times 1, negative 2. I don't have an x to multiply with another x, but I still have to distribute that into the last term. And then y to the first times y to the second would be y to the third. And here's our answer. And then number 5. Number 5 is very similar to the way we answered number 4, except this time we are using the letter A instead of X. We'll start with our first guy here. Multiply your coefficients. Negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. A to the third times a to the second. We are simply adding the exponents. That's a to the fifth. Let's distribute again. Negative 6 times negative 2. Positive 12, a to the third times a to the first, a to the fourth, and then one more distribution. Negative 6 times positive 1 is negative 6. We have to include that a to the third within the distribution step, and here's our answer.